Welcome back. You're watching The Full View. Let's have a look at your headlines this half hour. Of course, communities on Gauteng's West Rand are up in arms over the raw sewage flowing through their neighbourhoods, posing a serious health hazard. The National Police Commissioner, Ketla Sitole, has activated the recently launched 72-hour activation plan following another cash and transit heist in Katlehong. In some sport, a scuffle on the pitch becomes the major highlight of the much-anticipated ABSA Premiership match between defending champions Mamelodi Sundowns and Orlando Pirates. Of course, leading this half hour, the Bhisho High Court ruled in favour of Equal Education's #FixTheNorms case, which declared aspects of school infrastructure law that allowed government to indefinitely delay fixing the unsafe and inadequate infrastructure in South African schools as unconstitutional and invalid. Well, Equal Education has written an open letter to President Cyril Ramaphosa about government's school infrastructure plans. To discuss this further, I am now joined by Precillar Moyo, attorney at Equal Education Law Centre. A very good evening to you, Precillar. We thank you very much for your time. Essentially, the Law Centre has written to His Excellency President Cyril Ramaphosa, and of course he has not responded. How do you know that the President has indeed actually received the letter?
Thank you, Shante, for having us, and thank you to the viewers. The letter was actually written by our client, Equal Education, and as of Friday, we know that the letter was sent on Monday directly to his email, and we also know that it was published in open as an open letter, so we believe that he's received it. We haven't received an acknowledgement of receipt or any response, but then it's the second letter that Equal Education has written. The first letter as well, there was no response to it, so we assume they've received it.
Yeah, speaking of that second letter, we do understand that Equal Education Law Centre also wrote on the 31st of July this year in hope, of course, that the President would welcome that judgment that was made at the Bhisho High Court, which declared that those certain provisions of school infrastructure be unconstitutional. Can you take us through what exactly those provisions were?
Okay, so there are certain parts of the norms and standards for school infrastructure. Regulation 12, well, there are a number of provisions actually, but in essence, the first provision had to do with what we call the escape clause, which literally the Department of Education would say that they will try to abide with the norms and standards provided other departments comply or assist them. So other departments would be, for example, Department of Public Works, ESCOM, etc., depending on what particular thing that is part of the norms and standards that should be complied with. So sanitation, they might say water department did not assist us. Another provision that had to do with another provision actually had to do with certain unacceptable structures. For example, the norms and standards said that schools that are made of inappropriate structures like wood, asbestos, and mud should be eliminated at a particular point, and the department said basically that's what should be, and Equal Education objected, saying that there are a number of schools in rural provinces that are partly made of inappropriate structures, and those schools that are partly made or partially made of inappropriate structures should also fall within the ambit of that regulation, but the department objected and said that it purely has to relate to that. Another provision had to do with making public the provisions or the plans that different provincial departments had, and the minister also objected to that those plans by provincial departments should not be made public to schools or parents who are part of our membership, who actually are the ones who need to know whether their schools, if their schools are not in good condition, whether they fall within their provincial plans. So Equal Education was objecting that the norms and standards need to be strengthened, or that they are unconstitutional insofar as they disregard the schools which are partially made of inappropriate structures, and so far as the department can claim that another government department is responsible for a delay or anything of that sort.
Yeah, now definitely speaking of departments and executives of the president, we understand that Equal Education Law Centre has slammed the basic Department of Education with their lack of alleged engagement in the process, as well as holding accountability and ensuring that the plan that was set to be carried out is in fact carried out. Also citing in the letter to the president that the report to the High Court by Minister Mochega and Limpopo Education MEC Ishmael Gechepe have boldly indicated that it is only possible to begin to address water sanitation infrastructure at Limpopo schools, shockingly, in 2026.
Yes, that's a disturbing position, and our client, again, Equal Education, did write to the president in the same open letter to say that the plan that was presented by the Limpopo Department of Education really was an affront to the death of Michael Komape, whose case actually led to Equal Education being a friend of the court and participating in the court proceedings. The idea that dire or schools that are in really bad situations should have to wait until 2026 is unacceptable. It means that the current cohort of matrics or the current first year high schoolers will complete their high schooling before the department even thinks of amending or thinks of fixing pit latrines or toilets that are in really bad situations and can potentially lead to the death of children.
Yeah, if we talk about this now, just this year, March, again, another life gone too soon, that of Lumka Mketwa, also losing life to a pit latrine. Just take us through amongst now in the litigation that's currently taking place specifically in Polokwane at the expense of learners as well as school teachers.
Yes, as we know, Limpopo is not the only province that has got really bad sanitation. Recently, the media has been speaking about the Eastern Cape and about children who are using the open felt to use the toilet, and that's unacceptable. We know that KZN also has massive number of schools that have got really poor and bad sanitation. And in the case of Limpopo, it's encouraging to see that the courts always seem to come to the rescue when the department is not doing what it's supposed to do. And in this case, Polokwane High Court Judge Muller gave a really good court order, which was informing the Department of Education that they should provide a list of schools that are in need of good sanitation or that are who are currently using pit latrines, and the department should make a plan on how they're going to ensure that learners in the province have got access to dignified toilets that promote health and that promote their welfare. And it's really discouraging to see that the department in the report that they did submit to the court were stating that they will only start in 2026 because their current budget is already committed for other things. So we're hoping that maybe the court will persuade them again to get back to the drawing board and do something better, because we think children deserve better.
Yeah, definitely. Just before we wrap it up, of course, you've said your clients, the Equal Education Law Centre, have not been able to engage with the president. They've also openly put in that letter that they have written to be able to have the opportunity, afforded the opportunity to meet the president. If the president was watching right now and Equal Education Law Centre could make a plea for the president to come and meet them, what essentially would that be?
Equal Education has always been quite open to engaging with the Department of Education and with the President. And they've always stated that it's disheartening to see that he initiated the SAFE program, which is supposed to put sanitation back at the center of education to ensure that children in South Africa have access to good sanitation. So the most important thing is that it's ironic that in the face of his plan and his commitment to get business involved in trying to improve sanitation, that one of his departments, the Limpopo Department of Education, is providing such a shoddy report that doesn't seem to align with his plans and with his intentions. So we would hope that he would hear the voices of many of Equal Education's members who are actually learners who are currently in these schools, and their parents who would plead with him that if he's serious about sanitation, he will try and persuade all his provincial departments of education to really put sanitation back on their agenda and to ensure that children are safe when they go to school and that they are safe when they go to toilets at school.
We thank you very much for your time this evening. Precillar Moyo, attorney at Equal Education Law Centre, of course, on the open letter that the Law Centre has written to President Cyril Ramaphosa, basically highlighting the current and poor infrastructure facilities as well as sanitations in school.